American men's figure skater Scott Hamilton was born August 28, 1958, in Toledo, Ohio. After overcoming many obstacles, including an illness at the age of 2 that caused him to stop growing, Hamilton made his Olympic debut at the 1980 Winter Olympic Games in Lake Placid, New York. After being chosen to carry the American flag in the opening ceremonies, Hamilton finished 5th at the Olympics, best known for Eric Heiden's 5 gold medals. It would be the last amateur competition Scott Hamilton would ever lose. Hamilton had won 3 straight world and U.S. figure skating titles and was the heavy favorite.
Scott Hamilton goes after the gold medal right here. As we said at the top, the greatest pressure of all time is on the man who is expected to win. Because if he doesn't,
Scott, you want to unmute your mic?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Can you see me and hear me? Perfect. I am just so thrilled to be here and to be part of this enormous conference. I saw that the billboard said adversity. You really can learn a lot from adversity. And I'm all about it. So much of today's world and today's society is instant gratification through these devices. And we're so used to things being fast and quick and right now. And if we can't get it right now, then maybe we're not interested or it doesn't make us happy. So I'm here you saw the pictures of me when I was competing back in the day. And, right now I'm kind of not looking the same. Maybe I'm built more for speed now than I was back then because I'm more aerodynamic. But I've learned a lot over the past days, years, decades, or whatever. And I just want to share a little bit of that with you because, again, we're living in different times right now. I know we've been through this global pandemic and that has kept us home. It's been odd times where we're having to take different precautions and we're not able to engage each other the same ways. I've lived through enough, as you'll figure out over the next, few minutes, that I understand that where we are now is not where we're going to be. Where we've been certainly is different than where we are now. So we can keep looking ahead to see that, this too shall pass, that life, whatever it is now, is going to be completely different in the next days, weeks, months, and years. And a lot of that just comes from, when, you hear from people that have been around for a while, they'll tell you that, life is a big adventure and life is complicated and life is at times very difficult, but we have to do everything we can to be responsible to the moment and allow it to do its work so that when we get through the other side, we truly learn from what has happened, and so much of it we don't ask for. A little background on me. I know, you saw a lot of the stuff where I was more on the top of the mountain than at the bottom of the mountain. I'm a skater. Okay, so what that means is that from very first steps on the ice until my retirement was about 36 years. That's a long time. But in those 36 years, I probably fell down a minimum, I'm saying minimum, of 41,600 times I fell down, right? And so when you think about that, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, falling down 41,600 times and minimum. It was probably a lot more than that, but when I did the math, that's the number I came up with. But the thing about falling down that many times, failing that many times, is when you do that, you get up equally for every time that you've fallen. You get up. And when you get up 41,600 times, you learn that, the fall, the failure was temporary, and the getting up is the strengthening part because it gives you an opportunity to try it again. And so, thinking about all that, I wrote a book a couple of years ago. It was actually released during the Olympics that were held in Pyeongchang, South Korea. And it basically is a guide to being your best self. It's called Finish First. So in that, I realized that there were so many things, about, the aspiration of, wouldn't it feel good just to one day finish first in something? And I was always the sick kid. I was always the littlest kid. I was always the weakest kid. I was always that kid. And so I never really thought that I'd ever have a chance of accomplishing anything in my life that would even resemble winning like a city hot dog eating contest or something. I just never thought anything was possible for me. And so, I grew up sort of showing up, and I would play with my friends, and I would do the different things. And it was those 4 years that I spent in hospitals that I think I learned the most. It's when, tests and, uncertainty and fear and all those things that come from being sick and for nobody knowing what's wrong with you. And so at the end of those 4 years, my parents put me on the ice, and it was really fun to be around so many well kids. And in that, I learned that, skating was kind of the great equalizer, because after several weeks of taking these lessons, I realized that I could skate as well as the well kids. And then I learned I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And so I had self-esteem for the very first time. I felt good about myself for the very first time. I actually had an identity, and I had a purpose that I could show up and I could be good at something, just something, anything. I could be good at something. And so, I became a skater. And in those times, I would learn to do these jumps, and I'd fall down, get up, fall down, get up. And so it was in that process that I would fail tests, and that's embarrassing and somewhat humiliating. But then I would figure out a way over time to pass the test. And then I would lose competitions, and then I would figure out ways of doing better. The first time I ever made it to the United States National Championships, it was at the lowest event. It's called the novice men's event, novice boys, basically. And I went out for my long program, and I was skating in front of 17,000 people. And I was so scared that I couldn't feel my feet. And when you're a skater and you can't feel your feet, it's not a good thing. So I fell 5 times in a 3-minute program. I don't know how. I had time to fall 5 times in a 3-minute program, but and I came in dead last, like last, bad last. And so I realized that, oh my goodness, I had this opportunity to compete at this really big competition in front of all these people, and it could not have been a bigger failure ever. So I mustered up, after I stopped crying, I was a little kid, I realized that I'm going to try harder next year. And so I went back to the nationals the very next year, and I came in next to last. I beat one young man, but he wasn't very good. So he probably shouldn't have been there. I don't know how he made it to that competition. Anyway, so basically last again. So what do? So I went up to the junior event, and figuring that, I own last place in novice, so I go up to the next level. What's the worst thing that can happen? I can be last again. Well, I beat 2 guys. And I actually didn't skate that badly, and I beat 2 guys. And it's in this that you learn, you learn that, that maybe not winning a competition isn't the worst thing that can happen. Winning the competition is actually the best thing that can happen. But, you've got to figure out what it takes to get there. And so in writing Finish First, we came up with 11 different principles on what it takes to actually win or be the best that you can possibly ever be. And it was really a fun process, because we went through all the different things that I learned along the way and all my losing years that allowed me to be strong enough to find a way to win. And I'm going to share 3 of those with you today, because these are the biggest 3, and actually 3.5, because there's one I'm going to touch on. And so the first one is, showing up with intention. Every day that we go out to practice, or we're in school or whatever, we show up. We got to show up. Showing up is, a big deal, and showing up on time is really great. But showing up every day with intention is a whole different thing. Like, I used to be on time every day when I do the compulsory figure eights. I would be on time, and I'd spend a lot of time looking around at everybody else and sort of pretending like I was practicing, but not really doing what I needed to do. Not great, right? So it was when I learned how to show up with intention, with that intensity, that I was going to be a lot better. Like, I was going to use every single second of that time to do everything I possibly could, that results started to change. From that, like 7 out of 9, where I beat the 2 guys in the junior level, when I started working harder and I started to realize that maybe I need to work on this, because basically my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And she said I had like 1 year left in skating. And so I went all in. I just decided I was going to show up every day with intention. And I showed up every day, and I worked really hard. And from that 7th place the year before, the next year, which was going to be my last year ever competing, I actually came in first at the junior national championships. And that victory was so important because I got the interest from a coach who had a sponsor. My parents couldn't pay for my skating anymore, but now I had a sponsor, and it gave me a second chance at skating. So, now I'm going to move to a different training center, and I've got this great coach, and I've got all these things happening, and I'm at an age where I'm making, choices, not always great ones. And so, that showing up with intention was a really important lesson to learn, because the next year I didn't. And I ended up coming in 9th again, my first year on the senior level. And it was humiliating. It was devastating. It was terrible. It was awful. And so I went home humiliated. And that's when I watched my mother lose her battle to cancer. And it was devastating. She was the most important person in my life. And now she's gone. And after everything she sacrificed for me, what do I do with that? And so I went back to that. I need to show up every day with intention. And I went to work, and I showed up every day, and I worked hard. And if I ever felt like quitting, I would think of her. And it was like, no, I'm honoring her. I have to honor her sacrifices. I have to honor her commitment to me. And in that, I ended up becoming 3rd place, made it to the world team, competed at the world championships. So from being a 9th place loser in my first year on the senior level, my second year, I'm ranked 3rd in the United States and 11th in the world. And 2 years later, I'm on the Olympic team in Lake Placid in 1980. And I placed 5th in that competition. And it was a remarkable event, because then I was able to come in, I was able to leverage that placement for the next 4 years. I never lost a competition. So it's really amazing how, when you show up every day with intention, how it really makes a big difference. And a partner to showing up every day with intention is committing to the long haul. It's in this, as I said, when we got these devices and all this stuff, everything's coming at us at once, like this. Everything is like instant. And if there's any kind of muscle in the brain that we need to learn, it's that, we need to commit to the long haul. We need to understand that it takes time to build muscle. It takes time to, build coordination. And it takes time to take in a lot of information and remember it and apply it and understand it. So showing up every day is one, right, that you've got to do. And it's really remarkable when I see people showing up every day and they're focused, that's really awesome because they're giving themselves the best chance to be successful. Committing to the long haul, the second concept I'm sharing with you is really an amazing thing because you see and you feel yourself getting stronger, and you know that whatever today brings is just today, but I'm looking ahead a week or a month, or maybe I have goals for this year that I really need to, work towards and accomplish. So, it's like a great example of this is, Tesla, the electric automobile manufacturer. I actually test drove one time. And on the car, there's this switch, like on the computer, there's a switch that goes from like sport speed to ludicrous speed, right? That's hilarious. So basically, when you push the accelerator, you go so fast, so quickly that like I felt like my brain was going to fall out of my head. We were going so fast. And that's kind of what our culture, is going. It's like ludicrous speed, right? It's like everything has to happen like this, so like an example of it is you can go like with, like fast, it'd be like, Usain Bolt, that's fast, fastest man in the world, that's fast, right? So then that's not good enough. So then you go to like Flash, the comic book character, the Flash, who runs so fast you can hardly see him. Then you go to like, that's not fast enough. So then you go to like the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, and that like they did the Castle Run in 12.3 parsecs. I have no idea what that means, but it's really like in Star Wars, that's really fast, but that's not fast enough. So ludicrous speed is like, it's just like so fast that you just can't imagine it. Nothing happens at ludicrous speed. Nothing. You gotta just commit to the long haul and allow yourself to feel great in that aspiration and that getting stronger. And no matter, even if you don't reach your goal that week or that month or that year, it's understanding that I'm still further along in my journey than I was before. Committing to the long haul is a really amazing, thing. It's just like when we look at people in our culture that have really done that have found ways to, just dig in deep and find, those days of waking up. There's a woman in the United States, Oprah Winfrey, who when you hear her story, it's tragic. She grew up very poor, and she wasn't treated very well, and she ended up, after losing a child at birth very early in her life, she decided to move away from her home to live with a man she called her father. And it was there that she decided that she wanted to build something really spectacular. Like she really wanted to not give up. And a lot of people in her position would have given up after all the things that she endured early in her life, but she never gave up. And she just kept working and working and working. And she got fired from jobs, and then she'd get another job, and that didn't work out. So she'd go to another city, and then she'd start building again there. And she ended up becoming kind of the queen of all media. It's like, who hasn't heard of Oprah Winfrey? It's that type of thing. So, committing to the long haul and understanding that it takes time to accomplish your goals is a really powerful lesson. And it's one that I really had to kind of understand, because you're going to fail, then you get up. Oh, that didn't really work out. And that one didn't go as I was hoping. And but you just try to learn from each one of those, those times, and you just get stronger every day, and you just keep going just to get stronger every day. So, looking at, some of these stories of people that have started with nothing, that are so, unlikely. Like me, I'm totally unlikely. I was adopted at 6 weeks of age. My parents didn't have any money. I didn't grow up in a big town with, a big training center. My coaches were, for a long time, college students that didn't really know how to teach. They were just doing that to make a little extra money on the side. So much of it is unlikely. I was sick as a child. I was this, I was that. And yet, just through the miraculous process of having faith and showing up every day with the intention of getting better and really trying to understand that it takes time to build muscle. It takes time to build intelligence. It takes time to acquire wisdom. It takes time to understand that when I step out on the ice, I'm on my own, and that's a good thing. Before I'd be like this, I'd be so scared. I didn't really know what I was doing, but you just keep going. You just keep working it out. You just keep going. Another example of this is there was a guy from England at 16 years old, grew up in very modest circumstances. At 16 years old, he decided that he wanted to become an entrepreneur, right? It's a big word for a 16-year-old. And so he started a little magazine for teenagers. It was called Student. And he would, populate the magazine. And then he realized that he loved music. And so he started, through his magazine, he started a subscription music buying business where you could buy music and you could get, belong to this club where the music, you could get a lot of music cheaper and all of that. And then that became sort of like stores. He started taking that music stuff and building stores, and then it became video, and then it became sort of healthcare out of that, and then it became airlines, and then it became space travel. And it all started with an idea of just, I want to start a magazine. And it became this thing where he became Sir Richard Branson, another name that, a lot of people have heard over the years. So it's no matter what we don't have to start off with a big head start. We don't have to start off with this idea that, everything is like our table is set and all we need to do is sit down and start eating. No, we got to start from the very, 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 very beginning and work our way up. And it's really interesting. When I was in Korea and I was talking to some of the workers at the Olympic skating facility, I was talking about, taking, finding your passion and then, really leveraging kind of all your descriptors and everything that you have and just sort of finding and allowing that to reveal your purpose. And so this little girl came up to me and she just said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, I'm not good at anything. And I was like, whoa, she's not a happy person at all. I mean, I'm not good at anything. And I realized in that moment that here's this young girl, she was probably 17, and she said she wasn't good at anything. And I wondered how many times somebody told her that. You're not good at anything. And I wonder how many people are out there that have been told that from day one. You're just not good at anything. And I just had to take a pause, and it's like, okay, well, let's break it down. What do you like to do? What gives you pleasure? What are you naturally drawn to? And she just sort of looked down and she said, I like to read. And I go, oh, you like to read? That's fantastic. I mean, reading is unbelievable. Reading is like one of the greatest things you can do for your brain. I go, well, give me an example of what are the last 2 books you read? And she said, well, I read Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre. And I go, oh, you love the classics. And she smiled and she goes, I do. And in that moment, I looked at her and I said, maybe you're an author. And her eyes just went like that. And it was in that recognition that I saw that I gave her permission to dream about what she could do to take something she naturally loves to do and turn it into something really fun and interesting and like to reveal her identity. So there's all these things that we can look at and we can say, what, it's like, okay, I'm 5 foot nothing, right? 5'3.5", maybe. Like, I'm not very tall, all right? I'm a little person. And so for me to want to be in the NBA, not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You got Yao Ming out there. He's a big man. It's a lot easier for him than it would be for somebody that comes up to his waist to be competitive in basketball. So I learned early on that, I got to take what I am and who I am and what I've got, and I've got to be able to leverage that in order to figure out exactly where I belong. And so it became obvious that for me, it would be either figure skating, which was great, gymnastics, which I would have loved, or some sort of acting or entertaining, because, you know, being unique or whatever is good when you're trying to be in entertainment. So I ended up being a skater, and it all worked out really great because, again, you know, for those years when I lost, you know, all those times that you just, and, you know, and I tell people all the time, it's like, if you're a girl in skating and you medal, you win a medal at a competition, there's a lot of girls. That means you're really good. If you're a boy, there's not many boys in skating. If you're a boy in skating and you don't medal, you're probably should be thinking about doing something else, because, you know, it's just, there's not so many. You should be able to beat some of those guys and get on the podium. So it's about, again, from the beginning, it's showing up every day with intention. And then the second part of it is committing to the long haul, understanding that it doesn't come like this. It comes over the long haul, and really being comfortable and satisfied with that. Always asking, always challenging, always pushing, always, you know, really dreaming, always doing those things. But at the same time, understanding that it's not this. It's not this at all. It just takes showing up every day, working really hard, and committing to the long haul for all of this. And then the last part, and this is kind of a two-parter, it's understanding that failure, like I always do this, and when I remember I'm talking, I go, how many people in this room have failed? Like, how many people have failed? So you raise your hand if you failed, right? So I always say, if you don't raise your hand, either you're not listening or you're not telling the truth, because everybody fails. So if everybody fails, why do we spend so much time avoiding failure? Why do we spend so much time avoiding failure? And it's because it's like, well, it hurts. It doesn't feel good to fail. But there's nothing more important, because for me, failure equals, right? Failure equals information. Purely 100% failure is only information. It's feedback. It's telling you what you need to know in order to get better next time. Wouldn't it be great if our biggest failures in our lives, we didn't have to like carry around with us on our back, because it gets heavy after a while, all those failures, to carry them around, like, and it's just hard to carry around failure. And so I try to tell people that failure equals information. Purely, I had to learn through all those failures how I could rise above them, and how I could figure out how to wait. You know, okay, I fell 5 times my first nationals. How do I fall only 3 times next year? You know, it's that type of thing. So failure equals information. As soon as you learn from that failure, delete it and move on. It's so important that you don't carry them around. It's so important that you don't like hang on to these failures as like scars or anything else. I happen to love scars. I've had so many things happen to me in, just the scars, whether it be mental scars or physical scars. I've had cancer. I've had 3 brain tumors. I had the childhood illness. I've had injuries. I've had all those things, and they're scars. But I look at those scars as a couple things. One, it's sort of a remembrance of something that I endured, right? A lot of people look at scars as disfigurements or something that's awful. I go, no, I look at my scars as like, yeah, I got past that. That was a surgery. Yeah, I can move my shoulder again. Yeah, there's my knee. Yeah, that works now. Yeah, I had cancer and I did all that. And I got through that. And so scars are reminders that we're strong and we're durable and we can endure just about anything. So the idea of failure, another great example. I have my youngest son started playing hockey, and he started playing, and in the beginning, and their team got killed. They just got destroyed. And he got in the car one day after a really bad loss. I think they lost 10-1, and he just was really upset. And I go, okay, so let's break it down. And he goes, this is so awful. And I go, okay, what happened out there? And they go, well, they scored more goals than we did. I go, exactly. It's kind of the nature of the game, right? So it's like, what happened? And he goes, well, they skate so much faster than me. And I go, well, then what did you learn? He goes, that I have to skate faster. I go, yes. And you know, what else did you learn? And I go, what else? And he goes, well, every time I had the puck, they took it away from me. And I go, well, that's kind of the nature of the game, you know, really, you know. So what else? And and what did you learn from that? He goes, I got to work on my stick handling. And I go, good. I go, what else? He goes, and I want to get my shot right up in that corner where no goalie can touch it. It's just going to score every time. And it's like, wow, okay, we're dreaming now. This is really good. And I said, I go, son, what would you have learned today had you won the game? And he looked at me and he goes, nothing. Precisely. So sometimes losing isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's an amazing learning opportunity. And it's the same with criticism. You know, we get criticized all the time. You know, people tell us, you're not this, you're not that, you need to be doing more of this, you need to be doing more of that. And I tell people, I go, you know, criticism is criticism. It only comes in two forms. Okay, criticism only comes in two forms. One is fact, and the other one is based on opinion, right? So I always tell people, well, the opinion one, that one, I mean, you can look at it and you can say, well, if that's somebody's opinion, why am I giving somebody so much power over me, really? And what makes them better than me? And okay, so opinion's okay. If it feeds you, if it gives you something to work on, awesome. If it's just debilitating, like I had a judge, like when I started to get better, I had a judge that told my coach, it's really great that Scott's doing better, but he's always going to be too short to be competitive internationally. How do you fix that? You know, it's like, how do you fix that? So it's like, I had to like just figure out a way to look taller and extend and do things on the ice that it was important. You know, it was just really important that I figure out ways of trying. And I was never going to just make myself taller. There's no way I could do that. But I'm the only one on the ice, and there's really nobody standing next to me. So if I gave the impression of size, that's the best I could do. So as for someone that she said was never going to be competitive internationally, I went undefeated for 4 years, winning 4 world titles and an Olympic gold medal. Maybe her opinion didn't really hold water, maybe. And then there's the other side of opinion. You know, you can delete those opinions. You can delete opinions. You can just delete. I mean, social media is a great example of that. People say things, ugly things to me on social media that they would never say to my face. Just do. It's just the nature of social media. And I figure it's like, okay, well, what power does that have over me? So I just go, okay, delete, whatever. And unless I learn from it, that's fine. But if it's just people putting out insults, I'm not going to let that affect me. I'm not going to be bullied. I mean, come on, really? So I just sort of delete those. The other side I want to get to, which is really important, is if there's a criticism that's based in fact, right? That is not meant to hurt you. That is a gift that is meant to allow you to rise up, be stronger, be better than you've ever been. It's a gift. So use that criticism to kind of go, okay, I don't do this very well. Like when I was skating, we had a television commentator and he would always say mean things about me, right? And it wasn't mean things. It was, I should say, it was criticism, but he'd always kind of make it like almost shaming me. Like I wasn't a very good spinner. And he'd say, oh, you know, he's just atrocious, like, nice word, at spinning. I go, okay, all right, next year he's not going to be able to say that. What else? And he goes, oh, I don't, the way that he extends, it's just, that hand is always up like this, right? Right. It should be like that. And it's like, okay, he's never going to be able to say that again. What else? Oh, and his programs are out of balance. He puts everything in the beginning and nothing at the end. Okay, I'm going to make sure he can never say that again. So my whole preparation for these competitions was making sure that television commentator had nothing bad to say the next year. And it worked out where by the time I got to the Olympics in 1984, he was a cheerleader. He was no longer a critic. And so it's working through those times of taking those criticisms that you feel at the time are like, I don't really want to hear that. And just understanding that it's a gift. It's a gift. So it's shoring yourself up it's making yourself understand that whatever your aspiration is, no matter what walk of life, whether it be in sports or school or business or whatever, that it's a process. There's this thing that was built in Arizona, I believe. It's called Biosphere 2, and it was to see if you could do ecosystems indoors, right? So they had all these things indoors, and they would see the trees in these idyllic conditions and with like absolute perfect conditions would grow up to maturity, and they'd be perfect, and they would just be awesome, and they would just be like, and then they get to maturity and they'd fall over. And they couldn't, why are they, I mean, these trees have everything they need to be like strong and vital. They've got soil, they've got water, they've got sunshine, they've got everything they need in order to grow properly. And then they realized that the one thing they were missing in this controlled environment was wind. There was no wind. There was no resistance. There was nothing pushing on the trees. And so they couldn't build strong root systems, and they couldn't build the stress wood they needed in order to be able to stand up. That's what we are. We are trees that are trying to figure out a way to really get strong in a very turbulent and a very windy world. So, as we open it up for a Q&A, I just want to remind you that you commit to the long haul. Well, first you show up every day with intention, commit to the long haul, and understand that failure is purely information, and criticism, it's either food or you just toss it away. It's got to be healthy or you just toss it away. It's got to be a gift or you just throw it away. All right, I'm going to put my glasses on so I can take some questions, but I just want you to say I'm so honored and I so appreciate this opportunity to speak to you guys. And I'm going to put my glasses on now so I can read whatever the questions are. All right, Q&A.
Thank you so much, Scott. We're going to turn over the mic to the
you have
audience.
a mentor other than your coach who could you turn for wisdom and guidance. Yes, I had other people that I'd seen win competitions. I had role models. I had people that I saw that were amazing, and I just watched them and I'd learn from them. My coaches were valuable. My parents were very valuable. And my greatest accomplishment, that's a really good question. I would say the greatest accomplishment was longevity. How's that for an answer? It's getting there is one thing, staying there is another. When I turned professional and I needed a job, the ice shows really didn't ever have male stars. They only had female stars. And so I had to kind of figure out a way to get get a store, get kind of like, how do I rise above that? And so I just learned by other people around me that I need to I need to show joy in everything that I do. From that, I learned that from that person. I need to like work really super hard and build an audience over time, right? Like I had a lot of time. But I saw that kind of like blue collar workman's mentality of just building over time. And then the third one was be brave, take chances, get out there and just do things that nobody will ever expect. And in that way, maybe I could build something over time. And I ended up from first steps on the ice to Olympic gold medal was 16 years. And then from first steps of professional until retirement was 20. How's that? That was really bizarre, huh? So yeah, again, it's that whole long haul thing. It's that whole idea of, really committing and doing all these great things, but understanding that, you have to show joy in everything you do. You have to, work really super hard at whatever you do. And you've got to be willing to take some chances. All right, next question. I'm truly sorry about your mother's passing. Thank you very much. It was not easy for someone to get over the loss of a loved one. It wasn't. What words of advice can you give a person who has lost someone in order for them to cope and accept? I lost my mom. It's like, I always say that it was yesterday. I lost my mom yesterday, and it was 43 years ago. And I think about that, and I always tell people that the greatest thing you can do for someone you love is to carry them with you every day. just carry them with you, and be the person they always saw you to be. Right. My mom always believed in me. She always, you know, and when I'd come in last in a competition, she'd say, we're going to the Olympics someday. And I'd say, based on what? You know, she just believed in me, and she sacrificed for me, and she did all these amazing things for me, and she didn't do anything for herself. So I always thought, that if I could honor her in everything that I did, if I could honor her by being the person that she always thought I could be, and hold her in my heart, that would be the best way of mourning her loss, and remembering her in a loving way, and not just moving on. No, you carry those people with you in your heart, in your mind, those memories, and you share them. And in that way, it helps you